Hello and welcome along to the On the Whistle podcast. This week, we can't do enough rugby because we have a titan, a Herculean clash at Eden Park, the home of New Zealand football. That's right, the Springboks are in town. They'll be playing in Auckland against the mighty All Blacks. I'm your host, Zayn Nabbi, and joining me today to really sink our teeth into the Rugby Championship, but this incredible clash, is Caleb Mutombwa. Caleb, how are you doing, my brother? So lovely to see you. How's Bristol?
Ah, I'm fantastic. I'm as good as Razor. Bringing the band back together from 2018 Crusaders with Lester Fainganuku coming back in the fold. So I'm as good as that. So I'm fantastic. Let the boys play. Let the hoopers hoop is my motto. I wish Tobo also took a leaf out of that with the Stormers side that had Warwick Keland, Sasha Fenbengo Mzulu, Manili Bog. Who was the other one? Yeah, he couldn't play all of them in one team, didn't he? Just pray that one gets injured, then that solved his problem. But yeah, let the bowlers ball is the mission for this week. If I were Rassie, let the kids play, let them cook.
Well, listen, Caleb. As I said, we've got a magnificent game in Auckland. We're not going to forget about Argentina and the Wallabies because they too are undefeated in the not undefeated. Sorry, also have victories in the Rugby Championship, and we're just building up to what many believe is going to be the biggest game since the Rugby World Cup final in 2023. Do you think that's where this game ranks?
No, no, I think the streak is great. It's fine. It's fantastic. But we all know the Springboks virtually don't care about anything that happens in between the 4 years. Like I sense a feeling if you listen to Rassie today, he's talking about form doesn't matter. Both teams will be nervous. And we're not hitting our straps at the same time as both teams. It'll be out pushing each other. It sounds similar to the rhetoric in the 2023 World Cup when they were playing Ireland, where they'd put all their chips for Scotland and they didn't really mind who they play in the quarters, France or New Zealand. I think that's what I feel like. I think yeah, it'd be great if the streak goes, but I don't think they're bothered.
So, for those of you who live under a rock, the streak is very simple. New Zealand haven't lost in 50 tests at Eden Park. They've not lost in 31 years. And this is a golden opportunity for this Bok team to create a little bit more history. Now, before I outline my position of what I think is going to happen this weekend, Caleb, which I'm sure will be at polar opposites as we normally are, I just want to correct you. South Africa only lost to Ireland in the 2023 World Cup because of Mani Libbok's inability to convert goals. We convert the goals, we win that game. Again, I agree with you that Rassie didn't really mind who he played. We're in agreement there, but I can tell you we only lost that because of bad kicking. It wasn't because we
I
didn't
don't
care
know.
about the game. It was. Go
I
back
don't
and see
think.
the missed kicks.
I
That
don't think.
go and
I
see how
don't think.
Mani panicked. Go and see how Mani panicked.
I get that, but I also don't think South Africa were trying to win it full on because I don't think Dwayne Vermeulen finds himself. They they were sense testing a final. They were testing what they wanted to do for the Rugby World Cup final if they made it. They went 7-1 with Dwayne Vermeulen on the bench. He started the final, so clearly you could argue player of the final in 2019 was it. You know, you could argue it wasn't his best team. He was such a good cog in that team. Then I Manili Bog starts at 10. I think they go differently. I think Andre plays earlier if they wanted
Well,
to.
Andre wasn't in the squad, right?
He
He
wasn't
wasn't
in the
around back
squad
then in
then.
Oakland.
So I don't know. I've got a funny feeling about the streak. I think we're hyping it up more than they are. I think it's just an All Blacks test match for them because it's important like that. But I don't think storming Eden Park is the plan. I think the mission is the Rugby Championship. However, they get
How do
there.
you win the rugby championship if you don't break the streak?
Well, I think they win the second game. They
In
get two
Wellington,
points.
right?
They win in Wellington. They get 2 points here, and Australia nicks one in the Bledisloe. That's how South Africa win the Rugby Championship. I don't think Eden Park matters. I think they just need to win one of the two against New
And,
Zealand
and,
and
and, and
hope.
Argentina, who traditionally perform very well against the Springboks, are going to roll over.
Yeah, I think I'm not saying they're going to roll over. I think South Africa don't make the same mistake twice. I don't think they get bamboozled with what happened with the Wallabies. We've got a history of playing badly against the Wallabies. It's just it doesn't happen at home. There were two test matches in 2022. I don't know where Franz Steyn was as if
Mm,
he had ankle weights on his ankle, and I think Elton Yankees played.
mm,
We played rubbish and we lost those two games. Like it's a year we should have taken the rugby championship easily. I think Argentina had beaten the All Blacks, so they had lost a game,
mhm.
and then we went and we botched it up for ourselves. I'm not shocked when the Springboks played terribly like that against Australia, especially the big guns. We play well against Australia at home when we actually weirdly enough experiment. You remember Haitian Yankees, you remember
Yeah,
Kanan Moody's. When the big guns are there, it seems like they take it for granted.
we
I don't.
also slightly experimented at Ellis Park, and they that backfired. But let's
Yeah,
get into it. Let's get into it. Let me state my case. I think it's going to be tight this weekend. I think it's going to be decided by 3 to 5 points. I'm not predicting high score. I may be thinking maximum 2 tries per team. I think this is going to be test match rugby. I think it's going to be percentages. I think the Boks are only going to care about getting the W. So scoreboard pressure, tactical kicking, um, getting the lineouts, getting the scrums right is going to be integral to that because they were obviously shaky against the Wallabies and they weren't great in Newlands and Ellis Park.
I don't.
So I say the Boks go there, they grind a win, they break the streak, and they'll celebrate. Not quite like they've won a World Cup or Rugby Championships, but you'll see something emotional on that field.
We've never beaten the All Blacks in recent times without 20 plus points because the All Blacks always score, with the exception of the Rugby World Cup final, because I think it creates a different pressure that it's a Rugby World Cup final. If you look at Wellington, when that turnaround happened with Rassie and them, it was a high scoring game. Last year's two games were 20 something scores that the Springboks scored. So I don't think you get away with that against an All Black side at home. Kick pressure with them not scoring. We last tried it in 2019 in that World Cup group game and we lost because they scored way more than we did because they're also counter-attacking geniuses. I think yes, we back our defense, but we've got to go and fire shots. I think if we go and try and contain them, if South Africa tries, I should stop saying we. I'm a proper journalist. I think if South Africa tries and contains them, I think they'll be in trouble. I think South Africa needs to go and fire shots. I think they won't do it, but get Sasha on the wheel.
Wow,
Like I
bold.
think. Well, when are we ever going to find out? When are we ever going to
Well, he
find out?
played. He played against New Zealand last year.
Yeah, at home. There's a difference when you've got a big South African crowd cheering for you when you kick over goals. It's different under that pressure cooker. Like we need to sense test case some of they need to sense test some of these youngsters because they're gonna go to Australia next year for 2027 for the World Cup, and they're not gonna have the comfort of home. Some of these experienced players would have slowly maybe faded away, so they won't even have the insurance on the bench. I think you've got nothing to lose this year. Yeah, maybe because number one ranking, but still, you still go out as second seed in the World Cup draw either way, because you come to the end of year tour, you're not going to lose all of them, are you? So I think you test the conditions down under similar condition. Well, it's down under Southern Hemisphere in New Zealand. Get Sasha on the wheel. Get Kanan Moody at 13. Let's see if he's really if he's really made with the goods. Well, I think the rugby championship is gone anyways. I think winning it is a miracle now. Even though everybody has won on one. I don't know. Australia have to pull something out of a hat and the blade is low for South Africa to have a sniff. And South Africa needs to beat Argentina both times. And Argentina are no mugs, even though I think South Africa won't make the same mistakes twice to lose to Argentina and
Mhm.
Australia. But I know the Springboks sometimes don't want to win everything. I think get the kids, let the bowlers bowl, let the hoopers hoop.
The context is so important, right? Because Rassie does tend to do that. He bloods players, he gives them opportunities,
Yeah,
he stress tests, like you say. And he very well might do that at Eden Park. The reason why, Caleb, I'm suggesting he won't is because, firstly, things didn't go to plan at Ellis Park. And let me,
that's
let me, let me just make the point that South Africa can be a funny country.
it
Lose a
can.
couple of games, and they'll be saying Rassie's past his best. We need to get rid of him. Let's bring Jacques Ninaber back. I'm giving you like we're a bit of a we, and I include you here. We can be a bit schizophrenic in that sense, in the sense that it's suddenly going all wrong, and we're like, no, he's too. The players are too old. We need somebody fresh. Let's bring in somebody else to do the job. And I think he feels the pressure. I think he knows that if he wins at Eden Park, that buys him. Not that
I
he needs to buy time, but it just gives him more latitude to then go and experiment and do other things elsewhere. Because there's nothing stopping him experimenting in Wellington, where the Springboks do have a decent record, and they're able to maybe play a bit more of a mix and match. But I think he needs to go out, get the win, get the team psychologically on the front foot. They weren't great against the Wallabies in the second test at Newlands, but they do need the wins to build the confidence, Caleb, if they're going to have a really good chance of doing a sweep against Argentina.
I I I hear you. I hear you, but my thoughts have always been South Africa can moan all it wants. Rassie needs to lose 5 games in a row for him to get fired. It's one thing about the pitchforks coming out; they always will in South Africa, and I don't think he would care. I don't think if he's got the bigger picture and he
Mm-hmm.
trusts, and I don't think he would care. Number one, and I don't think Saru let him go either way. Like I don't. I think it's ridiculous that we're even discussing it
No,
because
no, no, no. I'm not. I'm just saying it just if you buy this, if you get this win, it buys you the year, right?
I
You
think
can
that,
really do
that
whatever you
happened.
want for the
I
rest of the
think
year.
that happened last year and in 2023 because that coaching group of South Africa is very bloated. Like it's one of the
Mm.
biggest coaching groups for a national team I've seen in a while, right? I don't think Tony Brown stays if Rassie goes. I don't see Felix Jones staying if Rassie goes.
Sure,
I
sure,
also
Blakely
don't
now.
see
Yeah.
Jaco Paper staying if Rassie goes. I don't see Jerry Flannery. It's an expensive gig for Saru to do that. And I don't think Jacques Nina comes back if Rassie gets kicked out like that. I
So
think
he's waiting to get naturalized, and then we'll see him in 2027. But
that
let's.
was the plan. So I don't think I'm not saying the game doesn't matter. I think the fans are placing more weight on it than it does on the team. I think it's part of the 3 year plan with Rassie on where they want to go to 2027.
Mhm.
Eden Park is there. It might be the best chance to see what the kids can do. Get Boan Venter playing. I don't even know if he's in the squad. Well, get you know what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
If
we haven't seen the team announced at the time
yeah,
of recording, so
it's a
we
Thursday announcement, I presume, in New
yes,
Zealand.
it's later in the week.
Yeah, but my point being, what are we going to learn by playing Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard with Damien Delendi and Jesse Creel? With Makazole Mapimpi and Cheslin Colby on the wings, with Damien Willems at the back. Those boys can win a World Cup, we know. I want to find out what happens if Mani starts at 10 with Apelele Fassi on the wing or at fullback and Damien Willems on the bench. I want to find out what happens. There's no Bongi Bonambi, so what a chance to put another hooker in there with Malcolm on the bench.
Mm.
I think there's a chance for players to be blooded in who are going to be there 2027 barring injury because there's others where you can bring the age factor in it.
Let me ask you this, because some of the pundits after New Zealand lost to Argentina in Buenos Aires were pretty scathing about the All Blacks and the cheapening of the jersey, and now it's easy to win. I think Justin Marshall particularly, talking about how the excellence that the generation of All Black he was with has now been wiped away. And I even heard pundits on the breakdown like the Mills Muliainas, the Jeff Wilsons, questioning Razor's coaching. And what was a little funny to me is they were raising questions about, are the All Blacks poorly coached because of Razor's inexperience at international level? And I stopped and I was going, I think I heard that first from one Caleb Mutombwa. Caleb, given what's happened, are you like, again, and I know you've clarified your position on this, you've not called
Yeah.
Razor a bad coach, so we don't need to go down that route. But it was that moment when I heard these pundits saying it, going, Caleb might have been ahead of his time 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago when you made those very comments.
So he's I think I didn't buy into the hype. Let me be very honest with you. I didn't buy into the breakdancing hype. He wears a suit. He looks like a prefect when he's in the coaching box. I think Razor is tense. That's number one. I think he's
Oh.
tense. And when that happens, he defaults to what he knows. He go
Mm,
Gordon Barrett. He'll go, ooh, I don't have centers. Leicester Fainga'anuku. I remember him then. He will go, I think Leicester is a great player. But I think there isn't the cheapening of the jersey. I think those 4 men at the breakdown, they need to get off their high horse. Other teams are getting better. They need to stop denouncing how other teams have been bettering their rugby over the years. Ireland came down and beat them 2-1 in a series. They survived the first test with the French B team, which everybody called a B team, but I know how good the top 14 is. It's not a B team by the skin of their teeth. They couldn't beat a Lions Lions team in 2017. It started then. I don't even know why this is an issue. Like, Ian Foster broke records all his tenure. Those issues about him losing to Argentina and all of these things. So I think that happened in 2017. The whole, if they're calling it cheapening of the jersey, they just are not producing generational talents as they used to. I think the last generational talent they produced, you could argue, is Borden Barrett,
mhm,
and maybe a Will Jordan. But you could argue there's other wingers in the world that probably does what he does. You know,
mm, mm,
is he the best winger in the world? If we right now and you say, is it Will Jordan? There's Damien Penaud, there's Louis Bilal-Biraye,
mm,
there's Cheslin Colby's. Whereas for 2 years, 3 years straight, you could argue Borden Barrett is the best player in the world, and it was clear.
mm,
They
mm,
haven't produced that. At the time they had Israel Dag, they had Ben Smith, so I think that those times have moved and people are becoming better, and they need to question their time. If you've got all your players centrally contracted and you're losing to Argentina, is typically a barbarians team coached well. You know, they play all around the world. They play their club rugby in the northern hemisphere. They play their international rugby in the southern hemisphere. It must be the most difficult gig international rugby.
mm,
They've got
mm.
no local team that exists, so they've got no power over their players. But somehow Cheka, Felipe Contempomi, Mario Ledesma have made all of this happen. So I think they mustn't take anything away from. There's some serious operators in that Argentine team. Pablo Matera started in Razors Crusaders when he was there. Julian
No,
Montoya,
Matera is a generational talent, right? And
Julian Montosha,
yeah.
Santiago Carreras, Mateo Carreras, Rodrigo Isgro. Like, there's some serious operators in that Argentine team. Some of them beat the Springboks, the Blitzbokke. I don't know if you remember that game where there were, is it the Olympics? Where there were five Argentine
Yes.
players on the field and there were seven Blitzbokke, and those Blitzbokke were rolled over, and some of those players have gone over to the 15th. So saying that, cheapening the jersey, and I think those men are still living in 2003 with Christian Cullen at the helm. I think they
It was
need.
a good era to be trapped in.
Yeah,
So,
it's not a bad era to be trapped in.
so Caleb, here's your opportunity to state your case. I've told you it's 3 to 5 points. The Boks will win. Just to say, I got it right against the Wallabies because I predicted a pretty similar scoreline for
Yeah,
Newlands. I got it hopelessly wrong for the Rugby Championship opener. And let's just say you got it wrong. You didn't get it hopelessly wrong.
no,
I
I
got it
didn't get it
hopelessly wrong.
right. Yeah, I didn't get it right.
But so this week you're clearly backing the All Blacks. Tell me how it plays out.
27-24 the All Blacks.
Sorry, could you repeat?
27-24 for the All Blacks. All Blacks by 3. I think it'll be one of those painful last 4 minutes try from the All Blacks. Then they'll win, and then the Eden Park voodoo will stay on, and then life will sadly move on for all South African fans. And I think it's okay for what's happening with the Springboks now, if we could call it that, losing one game to a plucky Wallabies side at Ellis Park, if we could call it a crisis as people are trying to frame it. I think it's okay. It's happening in 2025, 2 years out of the World Cup.
Mhm.
Teams try to regenerate now. Like, if I ask people, where are the All Blacks in their cycle? Do we even know?
No.
But you can tell
Razor's still figuring it out, clearly.
South Africa trying to blood new youngsters and then push some of the old guard out, but still extend their careers if they can.
Mm,
I wouldn't be shocked if they don't play a lot of next year. We can see where South Africa are. We can see where we could argue England are. Argentina just firing shots. If you're on their pathway, you might take
yeah.
one. So we can see where Josh Meat and the
They've,
Wallabies are.
I don't think there are many teams who beat the Lions and the All Blacks in a year. I know South Africa obviously did it, but it's pretty impressive. It's pretty, and they lost to England, but it wasn't like I don't take those. I didn't take that series
Well,
very seriously.
he was rotating as well. He
Yeah,
didn't care. I think people need to respect, like they need to put some respect on Argentina. I think the All Blacks naked by 3 points. Um, I think Borden Barrett will have a storm. I don't think South Africa will scrum the All Blacks. They never have, actually. I've never seen a South African team that's managed to scrum the All Blacks. They have a surprisingly good scrum, and we always get shocked every time. Like, who is our scrum, Heiko? No, the All Black scrum is good. Like, um, they're also number one in the world, so must remember that. Um, yeah, I just don't
I,
think.
the difference, I guess, between you and I, and I always love hearing your outline of how it's going to work. Right, in the old days, to me, the All Blacks had an aura, which meant they could win it in the last 5 or 10 minutes or get that try on
Yeah,
the stroke of full time that broke you. But
yeah,
under Razor, and I would even argue under Ian Foster, that went away, that evaporated to me. And
yeah,
it's funny, like I don't often agree with Jake White, and he doesn't often agree with me. In fact, Jake White wouldn't care what I say, right? Because he's won a World Cup and he's a brilliant coach. So why should he care about some guy in a polo shirt and a Sharks cap? But he has said that he thinks their aura has gone based on so many things and signs he's seen in New Zealand rugby, whether that's a lack of confidence, whether that's the continued losses against Argentina and the continual eroding of that New Zealand hegemony, whatever you want to call it. But I spoke with Peter Muller, the former Springbok legend, won the Tri Nations in 1998. And what Peter was saying, Caleb, is he still thinks the All Blacks have an aura. He still thinks that the All Blacks, nobody enters New Zealand playing the All Blacks at home as the favorites. That doesn't happen. And he was saying when you look at like golden eras of dominance, New Zealand can dominate for long periods. They can really jack up the scoring. They can jack up the scoreboard in ways other countries just don't. So he was, and again, it was so lovely to hear it from him because he's been to New Zealand. He's won a Tri Nation. Say, look, I think it's going to be tight. I think the Boks have the team that can win, but this New Zealand team is at home still have something special. I mean, do you believe they do? Do you believe that they still have that aura intact?
I don't think they still have that aura. I've never argued that they do. And I think it's about times and seasons. But I also don't think the Springboks are as invincible and formidable as they need to be, like a team
Agreed.
that has won two
I
World
agree.
Cups in a row. And there's a lot of things that the Springboks are unsure of at the moment. They they don't know who their best tight head is. That's an important position. They're figuring out who's the Springboks' best fullback. Is it Apelele Fassi? Is it Damien Willemse? Is it Willie Leroux? World Cup final. I think the Springboks are
Mm.
figuring things a lot. What's their current best lock combination?
Mm.
Off the bench, work differently. Rassie has outspokenly say you lose something when Archie is on and not Eben. Who's their best scrum half? Yeah, granted, Grant Williams has had most of the airtime currently. Who's the Springboks fly half? If you want to do it
Pollard.
on a wet Saturday in the rain in Stoke, yes, you get Andre Pollard.
If you want to
But
do it on a dry, high felt day, it's Pollard too.
I'm not sure beat the
I'm sure. I mean,
we beat the
Pollard,
Argentines
Pollard,
in Africa.
Pollard is a generational talent like Dan Carter was. He should be starting all day, every day.
I get that, but I'm not so sure if Pollard has all the other cogs with everybody else around him to make it work. If everybody else, like Pollard, will fire for the Springboks, if Damian Delende is firing, if Jesse Krill or Ben Lucanio Am is firing, I, I, I haven't seen a game where I think that's also something to be said about his consistency, right? He's an 8 out of 10 most times, so you tend to forget how good he is actually. You
He's
know, the
brilliant
yeah, you tend
because
to forget how.
because I've seen Delandi fire, Am fire, Creel fire, De Klerk fire, the Pack fire, and Marnie lose games.
Yeah, in
So
that.
that's what I've seen it. I saw it against Ireland. Um, fine against England in the semi-final in the World Cup. The Bok pack wasn't great. There was they looked really ordinary. But I've seen enough to know that when Polly is there and those guys are firing, he's going to fire too.
Yeah,
Whereas
he's just not
Mahani is
phased.
not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And Sasha's still learning. I like Sasha. I think Sasha's the future. I think Sasha probably starts in 2027. There's a good case from some that he might captain if Sia isn't around.
I don't
So
know.
I think he is, the heir to the throne. Whether that's 27 or 28, we'll see. But I think it's a little bit of a false argument to go. Pollard needs the others to fire to look good when those others have fired, and what we've had at 10 wasn't working.
I just think that it's a missed opportunity if we don't stress check the Springboks at Eden Park. I don't think you ever have a better chance
Mm-hmm.
outside of a World Cup. Okay, Fasi, show us then. You've got a church full of people that pray to the Church of Fasi, and you're the
I'm
Archbishop.
a big fussy fan, just so you know. I'm
I
a
know
fussy
there's a
fan.
Church of Fasi out
Yeah.
there. There's those people that believe Sasha Fine Bengomezulu is the second coming of Dan Carter. Let's see it, and we want to. I want to see it. What are the Springboks gonna do if Cheslin Colby is not there? You know,
Mm.
there's we don't learn anything. Love the boys. Love bring the band back together. The Oasis have been rocking the United Kingdom. It's good for nostalgia's sake. I got married when these guys were playing. I was I was in Iraq when they won the 2019 World Cup, and it was fantastic. I still remember those moments, and I remember us screaming and waking up a baby next door. The point being, we learn absolutely nothing having Makazole Mapimpi wearing the number 11 or 14 jersey. So it's a chance to not miss. Like, give Thomas Dutoy a run, lose firing shots. What happens then? You put the band back together, they get kicked. What do we do then?
Sure.
We've
The-
we've learned nothing and we've lost.
so here's my final question before we transition onto Wallabies Argentina for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, you think the aura is there? You think that the All Blacks
No, I
find
don't
a
think
way
the
to win?
aura is there. I just don't think the Springboks are as fluid as they need to be.
Sure, that's
And
fair
the All
enough.
Blacks aren't as
So,
bad. They're not a bad team. They will beat good teams. That All Blacks team is good enough to beat anyone in the world. We,
sure.
you
So,
know,
so Caleb, if you were a player or a coach, what would you rather be? Coming into this game, having played badly and won, or having come into this game, having lost to a team that many don't regard as a powerhouse? Where would you rather be
so are you
going
saying
into?
would I rather be Razor or would I rather be Rassie?
Yeah, or would you rather be a Springbok or would you rather be an All Black?
I
Because
think I think
if you can give me 30 seconds, sorry, and I did ask you to speak, but just give me 30 seconds because it feels like to me the Springboks played badly and won. The All Blacks weren't expecting to lose in Buenos Aires.
no,
Now they're
Argentina
playing at
played
home.
very well.
Now, Razor, in many ways, this is a must win because people are really questioning credentials. And if New Zealand are going to make a change ahead of the next World Cup, it would come after the Rugby Championship. If they want to go right, this project is done. So I would argue that there's far more pressure on the All Blacks than there is in the box going. But sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder. You go.
I would rather be Razor. I don't have halfbacks. I've got loads of injuries in the back row. I don't think he goes anywhere. I don't think they stop the project. I think they give him enough time. We saw it with Foster. New Zealand doesn't fire like that. I think he gets his 4 years and then they don't renew at the World Cup. And they will be in a semi final. Like, regardless of how not so well these 4 years go, they will be in a semi final come Australia. Like, it'll be New Zealand plus other people. Like, that's just how good they are. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a France or an Ireland or a South Africa don't make it. But an All Black side, they will be in a quarterfinal. They'll be in a semi then. So there's that guarantee because I think they're just good enough. I think they're
Mhm.
just good enough. I think the players themselves, ability wise, are good enough. What New Zealand is struggling with is finding the right mix, right? There's
Sure.
how much cheese do you put in your braai bread? Do you put both the cheddar and the mozzarella? I think that's what they're struggling with. Not necessarily that there isn't any braai happening. The braai is there. They just haven't gotten the right mix at the braai. Um, that's I think New Zealand. I'd rather be Razor because no halfbacks, a lot of injuries. You lose the double World Cup champions. That's permissible. But I don't want to be him at the Bledisloe though. I want to be Joe Schmidt at the Bledisloe. You're gonna have a punch, right? You're gonna have a crack. So I think to South Africa, it's fine. I can be Razor. I'm not the first one to lose at home. It just so happens to be Eden Park. So what?
That's why I think it plays to the box. Caleb, love your analysis. Let's switch it up to the Wallabies, Argentina. And
Yeah.
let's not forget the women's Springboks before we go. And we'll hit the mailbag. Tell me, how do you see this game playing out? I mean, Argentina coming in there with the wealth of confidence. Everyone's saying the Aussies are back. I'm going yawn. How do you see the game going this weekend?
I don't know if the Aussies are back is a statement, but what I know for a fact is I never bet anything on the guys from Buenos Aires. If you want to die poor, bet on Argentina, especially after they've won a game when they were underdogs. If you really want to die poor, like easy, don't join a stock, don't join a pyramid scheme, don't go, just bet on Argentina. Second game after they beat a big team. That's how you die poor. And I love them, right? Like
Who doesn't love Argentina,
I
bro?
love them.
Who
Like
doesn't love Argentina?
they're basically a barbarians that is spread across the top 14, the English Prem and the URC here and there. But they've got to write good, smart.
Argentina, Argentina,
Play for my country.
Argentina.
Remember Pablo Matera in was it in Australia where they beat the All Blacks the first
Oh,
time? I play for my country. He must show me respect. I respect him also. That's how he said it. I love them. I love Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires is one of my favorite
Does
cities.
it translate to fair winds? They're just like a fair wind. They blow over when they blow over, and when they're there. When they're not there, they're not
You
there.
know, I would love it if they could win one in Oz. I really would, because then I think they
They
start to make.
will. I just
No,
don't.
listen, because then it's statement wins, right? Like people forget that these guys can be perennial semi-finalists at a Rugby World Cup.
Not
We've
can
seen
be.
them.
They have been.
This is my point. You know what I mean? And they did it when they were virtually amateur in 2007. The Gus Pinochet teams, Augustin Pinochet. So like, I've seen them do it. Like I've seen them do it as like pretty much amateurs. And look, they're a funny one in the sense that they are a traditional rugby nation, but they're a football country first and foremost, and they're Latin American, so they don't really, I think, they don't really fit the old Commonwealth countries that see themselves as the custodians of the games, plus France.
You know who Argentina. Excuse the analogy, but you're like stuck in a toxic relationship with a partner who your parents love. But you're trying to keep telling them that they shout when you're not there. They scream in my face. Like, no, but they're lovely. They came and painted the house. They did the garden. They fixed the car. Why are you not marrying them? They cooked a lovely meal, whatever the case. But you try and tell them that's the devil when you're not there. That's what Argentina are like
Mm.
because when they're on, and they beat the All Blacks out cold. I think was it Augustin Crevio? It was Julian Montoya running 10K in his flat during
Mm.
COVID, and they came and smashed the All Blacks. So it's yeah, they like that second team fly half who plays second team at school because he can't just do his homework on time and doesn't listen to the coach's game plan. But when he cooks, he cooks.
It
Like
cooks.
when you
So,
put him in,
so
yeah.
give us your prediction for the first test. How do you see it going?
I think Joe Schmidt has got plans. I think he wins that. Even
I.
without, he doesn't need Wolves Kelton against Argentina. He needs Wolves Kelton against the Springboks and the Lions. I don't think he needs
Mhm.
Wolves Kelton against Argentina.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Wallabies win the first one. We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see what happens in the second. I think you're right. I'm hoping against hope that Argentina can go and do something, but I said that the last time when they beat New Zealand. So may they continue to prove me wrong.
I also don't think Australia are that bad anymore to lose two in a row like that. I think Joe
Mm,
is too
mm,
good a coach for that to happen to him. Like we saw it in the end of year tour before they were even starting building. They
yes.
beat England, then they got beat by Scotland because they can still see it's a team that's growing. But I think he's had enough time with them. I worry about Australia when whoever they appointed to take over from Joe Schmidt, we know who he is.
Tim
Comes in.
Lane?
No, it's Les Kiss.
Les Kiss. Sorry, not
From
Tim
his
Lane.
time with Irish, London Irish.
Of course.
I remember him from those days. Um, yeah, questionable. Yeah, I've never been a fan since he got a certain player who had a case playing for London Irish. I think a fly half whose name I'll not say because I don't think he deserves that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think you know who I'm talking about, and staunch rugby fans can ask in the mailbag, and then we can type it out. I'm not going to say. I refuse. Yeah, I just
Yeah,
don't think Josh
because you know where I remember Les Kiss from. He was a defense coach for the Springboks, and then he also did a couple of Super Rugby teams in South Africa many years ago. I'm talking like the early 2000s.
yeah,
So there was him and a guy called Tim Lane who were Aussies in and around South African rugby. So he has been around
ah,
for a
he
long,
did
long
the Bulls,
time.
the Stormers, and the Cats at some point, didn't he?
Yeah. I,
And
I
South
interviewed him actually, so that's why the name is familiar. Ask me what we spoke about, and I can't tell you because I think he was the head coach at the Cats temporarily at some point or something as well.
and
Um,
he was the defense coach with Declan Kidney with Ireland at the time as well. But
yes,
I haven't seen enough from his Reds. Um, I don't know, but I don't think the Wallabies lose. I think they win. I think they win the first one, and then the Aggies come back the second time after Felipe
sure,
Contempomi has given them a hair dryer experience, and
sure.
they'll wake up a bit.
Caleb, I didn't want to bury this at all, but Sunday was immensely proud for me
Yeah,
seeing the Springbok woman beating Italy. I mean, the way they celebrated afterwards, it looked like South Africa had won a title or a championship. But for those of us who understand the story of Springbok women's rugby, this has been a team that hasn't been treated in many ways the same way we do the Springboks. Or if you look at countries like England, where the RFU has really funded women's rugby, or the New Zealand Rugby Union has really got behind their women's program. In many ways, it's been an afterthought in South Africa, but in recent times, it's been taken more seriously. There's been a lot of investment. Swayster Brain is the coach, and to see those ladies play so well and beat Italy, and I'm going to say it because there were some questionable refereeing decisions that I think had this been in a men's World Cup, I think South African fans would have just been like, there's some wrong calls, they're blatantly wrong calls that have happened in there. But let me not let that distract from a monumental occasion
yeah,
of South Africa beating Italy. And what I loved is how integrated, how unified this team is. Hele, that's my girl, the number 8. She
yeah,
can crush anyone.
yeah.
Nadine Roos is a pleasure to watch, whether she's at 9 or 15. And when the bomb squad comes on, I'm like, this is Swace, this is brilliant because I don't know of any other women's team that does it this way.
I I think you must give credit to what when Rassie was director of rugby um back in before he took over as head coach after the departure of Rassie Erasmus. He did something that very few people realized what he did. He decided, I think at the time there was no women's sort of like team, right?
Mhm.
There was no women's team. They'd closed it, and Rassie went and spoke to somebody he had met in Ireland called Lynn Cantwell to come and become director of performance for the women's game and pathways for I think 3 years. She came down to South Africa. She's back in Ireland now, and she and the team that was there were very instrumental in trying to create a professional setup for the women's game. And through that, we saw the Bulls daisies being brought up under the Blue Bulls. Um, and there was a unification from the sevens team, bringing some of those legends of the sevens game into the 15s game. And I think the masterstroke was the appointment of Swayze de Brain as a coach, somebody who's been there, done it. But one thing he's passionate about is teaching good basics to good teams and good players. And I remember there was a time when he was on the final whistle in Supersport, and he had been out of the Springbok fray for a bit after he was attack coach. where he had moved out for personal reasons. And one of the things that he's passionate about coaching the coaches and coaching the basics. But one thing Swayze has always been about, he has been always been about creating a family-oriented team wherever
Mm,
he's gone. It's believed that when he lost touch with Elton Yankees, that's how Elton went a little bit off the rails, because Swayze and Johan Ackerman were always the arm around Elton, and that's the kind of
mm.
man he is. And I think people must not underestimate what these women have done. In 2006, they didn't
Oh,
score a point, you know? They didn't score a point. I think they held the highest score at a World Cup loss by any team. They haven't qualified for quite a lot. Last World Cup, I remember Daniel Gallen, friend of the show, caught some flag for his piece that he wrote about, where he wrote against them celebrating when they just lost and lifting Zayn Jordan in the air as she retired at that World Cup. And they played Italy in WXV2 and they lost to Italy,
yeah.
which Scotland won, I think, in South Africa. And they lost by 4 points. Was it 4 or 5 points? And they've reversed that because there's clearly been progress. And I think you need to look at some of the benefits that have happened with that whole professionalism process. With Lynn Cantwell, what we saw was Babalwa Lacha becoming the first professional rugby player in South Africa. Daniel playing for Harlequins. Daniel Lochner played for Harlequins. So did Aseza Hele. And then you've got the sevens players that have been in and around your Libby Jantse van Rensburgs, your Nadine Rooses, your Lindy Legwala, Captain Lusindi
Mm,
Soboy. It's been an interesting amalgamation of what happens when, because one thing South Africans have never liked is a talent and the heart. Just
mm.
chuck in some resources and a bit of organization and let the magic happen. And I think if it's just a call to invite all those men who will never watch women's sport and who've never been in and around the women's game. I've followed it, covered the Rugby World Cup last year, covering it this year. It's an absolute brilliant space that's welcome to everybody who wants to be there. If you saw Nadine Roos chase that kick towards the back end of the
Oh,
game and touch it down,
brilliant.
the goal line drop out from Libby Jantse van Rensburg to
Mm,
let it bounce in the field, and then it going out, and then full time to nick that and qualify for the quarterfinal. And that's not a mug Italian team. You had Beatrice Rigoni, you had Sofia Stefano on a 100-yard cap, you had Silva Turani, you had quite a number of players that played their flight in the in the PWR. In Sarah Tunezi, there's a lot of players there
mm.
who are good players, and I think what the Springbok women have done is absolutely fantastic. I know they're going to go in the quarterfinal and probably face New Zealand, but I think this was their World Cup
You will.
final.
Yeah.
This is
Look, we got France. We got France next week as well. And look, these might be bridges too far, but unless you're able to test yourself at the next level, how do you grow?
Yeah, and I think people mustn't forget the amount of work that they've been through to get to where
Mm,
they are. And I hope they get a hero's welcome at Oliver Tambo International Airport in Kempton Park when they return. And I think it's also a sign to other countries. I'd like to see countries who have a bit of money behind them, your Spains of this world, your
mm,
USAs of this world, your Australias of this world, to say, throw enough resources at the girls, at the women. They're good at what they do. They just need your support, and you'll see the magic happens. It's been a brilliant tournament. Game of the week, probably you could argue the Springbok game, but Australia USA was a cracker. If you
oh,
didn't watch that game, I'm
31
sorry.
all.
I
Wonderful.
can't. Ilona Ma was on fire, reminding everybody that she is a rugby player, because there was those fly by nights who were saying, "Oh, that Instagrammer who plays rugby." No, 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 no.
Influencer.
She's an Olympic bronze
No,
medalist
she can
who
play.
happens to have a lot
She
of
can
followers
play.
on Instagram. She's a rugby player
She
first.
can play.
There's discussions about, is she an 8, is she a 13, but 3 turnovers, loads of post contact meters. Who cares? The girl is on fire.
Exactly.
It's a bit sad what's happening to Australia. They did bring Jo Yap as the coach there. She's a fantastic lady. She set up a couple of structures here in the UK, but things are just not coming together for Australia. It's an interesting World Cup. I think Canada are the dark horses. Um,
Mm.
it'll
Number
be
2 in the world.
number 2 in the world. They've got a good team with the Alex Tessiers of the world, and they've got 16 out of their 23 that played this weekend playing in the PWI in England.
Mhm.
So it's not a bad team. So it's exciting to see John Mitchell, Red Roses soldier on as well. 92-3. Manusina Samoa was fantastic to see them getting their first points of the Rugby World Cup ever. One of their props is a mum of 4, She works a full-time
Wow.
job, and some of their players had to get leave from work to play at this World Cup. And I think one of the brilliant questions was asked is, how does it feel to experience this kind of atmosphere and know that you're not going to have it again, or maybe for at least 4 years if you ever make another World Cup? So I'm just urging everybody, if you're in the UK, it's on free to air, it's on the BBC, on iPlayer,
Mhm.
on all channels. Get on with the Women's Rugby World Cup. Tickets are still there for some of the matches. They're in around the world, the country, everywhere, up and down, all the way from York down to Contra, Exeter. So get tickets, see the women play. Let's see if John Mitchell can earn his salary. He's being paid for 4 years to win one game. One game. That's the World Cup final. Um, at Twickenham.
Let's see if they can do
Let's
it.
see.
Caleb, fantastic analysis, and thank you for digging into the women's game. We don't want to make it a throwaway and on the whistle here. We want to have these segments where we can talk about it, and we're so blessed that there's somebody like you who knows the game so intimately with the men's, with the women, with the juniors. So thank you for giving your expertise there. But now, Caleb, I'm going to give you a little bit of a chance to laugh at me because we're going to hit the mailbag. And for those of you listening out there, you can find us on our social accounts quite easily. Just search for OTW_podcast on TikTok, on Instagram, and of course on X. We do rugby and we do African football. We'll be branching out to do more sports and more sit down interviews and more things that you want to hear. So let us know out there if you have any ideas or any thoughts on anything. But Caleb, there was a lot of reaction to the podcast we did before South Africa beat the Wallabies in the second round of the Rugby Championship. And I posted on our social accounts about the fact that I believe that the Wallabies had won their first test against the Springboks in Johannesburg because of poor in-game management by Mani Lebok, and that the world order in rugby would return at Newlands, or not Newlands, in Cape Town, with Pollard back. And in the build-up, we had Ferdinand who went facts. I didn't like you then, but I'm going to like it now. Sorry that it's so late. We also had Javon say, agree with you, bro. Thank you, Javon. And then we had Mebo, who wrote a wonderfully in-depth response, which I'm going to praise and summarize. And Mebo said, tell me you don't know rugby. It was the Fords who let us down at the breakdown and the lineouts. Esterhazen dropped the ball, resulting in a 70-meter trial. Creel threw the ball away into the lap of an Australian player. Yearman left a gap, resulting in an Australian breaking the defensive line. He goes on further to talk more about the game. But the stuff I want to get to, Caleb, is he said, shouldn't your experimental team go to your most experienced fly half, Dash Pollard? Marnie should be with the settle team to find his feet. Instead, he gets untested combinations, which he gets blamed for when we lose. You'll see Pollard and Sasha never get the experimental team. It's always proven pack and settled combinations. And Sigo liked what Mebo said, and he said, true, bro. Just like they blame Fussy. Listen, everyone out there, thank you for your comments. Thank you for sharing the content. Thank you to our community. You don't have to agree with me. You can disagree with me. It's all good. And I really welcome that discussion and points. I wanted to ask you, Caleb, and we don't have to make this an extended answer, but does Mabel have a point that Polly never gets the experimental teams? It always seems like it's sort of Marnie playing in Argentina or examples like that.
Yeah, I think the idea is, I think the idea is to give money a team that's not settled because they want him to be the general of that team as the fly half. If you put Damon Delendi, Jesse Creel, Ebenezer Betts, Siakolisi, and all the rest of that, is he driving the team, or they're driving the team? We saw what he can do
Mm,
against the pack. He played Scotland in the Rugby World Cup and he was doing no-look cross kicks and they work. But I think
but
Russ
it's
is looking at a life beyond those players, right? I also don't think, I think Manny copped some flack for that game. I don't think he had anything to do with that loss. He did contribute because related. The, Spring-
Suali, Suali.
The Springboks were outpassioned. The Springboks were outpassioned. The Wallabies played 50%, 50 minutes more better rugby than the Springboks, and that can't be down. The points difference was 20. That can't surely be a fly half. The points difference
No,
was
no, agreed.
20.
Agreed.
It's,
But it's
if we
the
lost by
Indian
three, if they
management was
lost by
poor,
three
though.
points, 3 points with 4 conversions missed and the penalty missed because they've scored so
And
many
the set
tries.
pieces were a dog's breakfast. So, yeah, I agreed. Um, Listen, Caleb, always fun chopping it up with you. I wish you well. I know you've got to get up early in the morning for some referee training. So, I'm going to let you get your beauty sleep. But it looks like you want to have one more parting shot before we go.
I just think World Rugby is in a good place. The women's game is growing. It's fantastic. Anyone can beat anybody in the top six. I think Razor and Steve Borthwick are is equal to. They're great
Mm,
coaches, but I think they're a little bit undecided. I'm hearing rumors that Steve Borthwick wants Lee Blackett to come into his coaching group, as he was
interesting.
impressed by Lee Blackett and Byron McGuigan on the end of year tour, which speaks a little bit of indecision because now he's moving Richard Wigglesworth to defense. Felix Jones was gotten in as a defense coach. Then 2 months later, he was now a senior coach. Now he's gone. I think there's a little bit of indecision there with them at the highest level. I think they're brilliant coaches. I think they must be a 6, 7 year project, not necessarily a 4 year cycle with those guys. And I think both will be cooking by 2027. So,
Okay.
yeah, World Rugby is in a good place. See everybody at the Rugby World Cup 2025. Come and watch the women. They're fantastic, and it's a good space to be a part of.
Caleb, wonderful place to leave it. Thank you for those of you listening. And remember, we are Africa's biggest braai. The podcast might be over, the show might be over, but all the discussion continues online. Join us there.